So fantasy functions. Fantasy functions are made up of two components, fantasy conceits and analog cultures. Put those together and you're able to generate a world very, very quickly. This can be for fantasy or science fiction, but for our purposes, we're using fantasy. Fantasy conceits are the first part, and they are what you do when you break from reality, as in you inject something unreal into your world. This is what Jemison calls element X, and it is what you are trying to examine as a fantasy author. This is the part of speculative fiction, and where we're actually speculating. Fantasy functions follow 6 categories generally, moving from the large to the small. It goes geography, biology, physics/magic, because that's what it is, metaphysics, tech, and culture. Geography, biology, physics, they all kind of make sense. Metaphysics is your gods and your undead, spirits, that kind of thing that doesn't abide by the laws of physics. The laws of biology, technology, and then culture. They flow from the largest to the smallest, as in things like geography and biology have a larger effect on the story world and will affect things like technology and culture, which are near the bottom of the chart. Mind you, there are more details that are in technology and culture than there are in the geography and biology. Anyways, so analog cultures are the second part. They are the cultures and time periods that are drawn from the real world as inspiration for the fantasy worlds. We take those and we kind of plug them in, and with fantasy functions, the output details are what we use to populate the world. Science fiction, on the other hand, usually builds their cultures and such from the ground up, but fantasy, kind of looking towards the past, takes those analog cultures and then uses them and changes them with their fantasy conceits. This may seem lazy to a certain effect, but what it does is that they create what are called Toehole details, which give the audience something to latch onto, and that kind of keeps the mental equation constant so that they can now focus on the fantasy conceits themselves and see how the world has changed. Again, you take those analog cultures, you plug them into your fantasy conceits, and boom, you have new details to populate your world for your audiences to be fascinated by.